decades. Let me say one thing. Back in 1985 and then in 87, when I was working in the Foreign Ministry of China, I had the honor of interpreting for the visiting former Secretary of State and former advisor to the US President, Dr. Henry Kissinger. Now, you may or may not recall that the modern rapprochement of relations between China and the United States started in Afghanistan because back in 1971, Dr. Henry Kissinger, at that time the Presidential National Security Advisor, made a top secret visit to China. He landed in Islamabad and then pretended to be sick. And then he basically left from the world's view for a couple of days. And during that period, Dr. Henry Kissinger and his very small selected team made a top secret visit to China and laid the foundation for the subsequent opening up of China-US relations, paving the way for the presidential visit by President Nixon to China in 1972. Therefore, allow me to emphasize one point. Both China and the United States should always be grateful to Pakistan and the role that Pakistan played back in 1971 in enabling the reopening of relations between China and Pakistan, which has been earth-moving. The implication and the consequence of Dr. Henry Kissinger's secret visit to China, enabled by the government and by your president at the time, was of greatest significance in terms of human history. It changed the world, basically. And back in 1985 and then 1987, when Dr. Henry Kissinger was making two of the up to about 100 visits he has made during his lifetime to China, we actually talked about his secret visit to China back in 1971. And then allow me to also add another point. Also in 1985, I interpreted for the visiting former president of the United States, Mr. Richard Nixon. He came to China as a former president. He went with Deng Xiaoping and all the other Chinese leaders at the time. And I traveled to other cities with former President Nixon, and we chatted along the way. We spent about 7 days in Beijing as well as other cities in China. And we also recalled his most important state visit to China in 1972. And he talked about all the odds that China and the United States overcame in reaching out to each other and establishing normal relations eventually on January the 1st, 1979, when at that time the president of the United States would be Jimmy Carter. Now, I mention this to tell my brothers and sisters in Pakistan that Pakistan played one of the most important intermediary roles in human history. You brought China and the United States, two countries completely estranged from each other, having no contact with each other for whatever reason, in 1971, to reconnecting with each other. And I think all of us, China, the United States, and mankind as a whole, should always be grateful to this very important role that Pakistan played. Now the United States is blaming for the transformative changes taking place in China, especially ever since China started the economic and political reform back in 1978, more or less in that neighborhood. However, I don't think that's the reality of China-US relations. The reality is that China has been developing very fast, and the United States, for whatever reason, has not been developing that fast. And right now, in terms of purchasing power parity, China is already larger as an economy than the United States. And for many categories, and we actually have a long list for more than 200 major items. China's production is way ahead of the United States. For example, in terms of automobile, for 2024, China's production was more than 31 million cars. In the United States, it's about 16 billion cars, which actually included the second-hand cars sold in the market. In terms of iron and steel, in terms of many other things, in terms of the total industrial output, for example, and more importantly, in terms of power generation, China now as a country generates 2.5 times as much power than the United States. And China's electricity for industrial production is about 6 times as much as in the United States. Now, I mentioned these numbers, and there are so many other numbers we can talk about, just to show that because of China's commitment to political reform and economic reform and opening to the outside world, China has transformed itself as well as the world we are living in. Now, because you are in Pakistan and one of your neighboring countries is Afghanistan, let me just connect these dots. The economic and political reform and opening to the outside world in China started more or less around 1978, 1979, when Deng Xiaoping became the paramount leader. That time more or less corresponded to the situation in Afghanistan getting out of control, because we know the former Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan, and they were in Afghanistan for about 10 years. And then eventually, after 10 years of war in Afghanistan, the former Soviet Union decided, or they were forced to leave Afghanistan, more or less in 1989. So these two events are very important. The rise of China in modern time more or less corresponded to the disintegration or the decline of Afghanistan. But as a result of the changes in China, you know what China has become out of the former 46 years or so, and look at Afghanistan. There was a 10-year war by the former Soviet Union. Then there was a 20-year war launched by the United States and NATO against your neighboring country. And by the time when the United States were forced to flee from Afghanistan, Afghanistan became a hotbed of radicalization, extremism, and terrorism. And many countries neighboring with Afghanistan, including your country and my country, and in China, especially the Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region, became affected by the situation in Afghanistan and things getting out of control. Now, I mention this to say, and to share with you that if you have commitment to peace and stability and development, and in the words of the former leader Deng Xiaoping, who kept saying that development is the hard truth. By development, you can overcome all the challenges and all the problems. And if you do not develop, you cannot pull yourself out of poverty. You cannot really improve your living standards in the world.
अभी मैंने मीटिंग ज्वाइन की हुई है, वो आपकी आवाज नहीं आ रही है।
आपकी आवाज आ रही, बंद करें जो भी ये बोल रहा है। काइंडली अपने म्यूट करके बैठा करें, कुछ सेंस होती है जी। Yes, please go on.
Thank you. By mentioning this, I want to make one very important point. In China, we believe in development. And not only Deng Xiaoping said that in the 70s, in the 80s, and the early 1990s, but the subsequent leadership in China and the government here and the people here in China, we always believe in development. And you need to have stability preserved in order to develop. And then you need to keep peace with your neighbors in order to develop. And development should always be the hard truth. So from our perspective, and in China-Pakistani relations, let's do our best to make sure that we follow the path of development. And each of us will do our best to maintain stability at home and do our best to preserve peace in our region and in the world. And if peace in China or in Pakistan will ever be threatened, let's work hard and let's cooperate with each other to make sure that our peace and stability and sovereignty and territorial integrity will always be maintained and safeguarded. Now, allow me to shift the gear a little bit to China-Pakistani relations. I mentioned Deng Xiaoping in 1980s, and my time as his interpreter was the highlight of my life. And talking to you today, sharing my observations with you today is the second highlight of my life. So our conversation, our dialogue, to me, is very important. It means a lot. But allow me to mention that Pakistan, ever since your independence, has always been playing a very important geopolitical role. And your location is very much of a geopolitical location. And different countries, for example, different political camps, different alliances look at Pakistan, not only from your own perspective, but many of them actually look at you in their own geopolitical considerations. They want to take advantage of Pakistan. From the Chinese perspective, we want to share our future together with you. We want to share whatever experiences we have gathered and accumulated, especially ever since 1978, with you. And allow me to mention this CPEC project, the economic corridor between China and Pakistan, is actually, in my measurement, the largest single project ever in the whole Belt and Road Initiative. You know, there are more than 160 countries participating in the One Belt, One Road Initiative, so many countries participating. And China has been helping many of these countries build up highways, railways, bridges, ports, airports, all kinds of facilities, industrial parks, etc. But the largest, most important, most costly project is the CPEC project. And the CPEC project will be a great plus for Pakistan as well as for China. I believe when the CPEC project is fully completed, it's divided in several phases, of course, it will help upgrade the manufacturing capacities of Pakistan significantly. And we need to really very much focus on making sure that the CPEC project is a complete success, and all the regions through which the CPEC corridor goes through in Pakistan will enjoy peace and stability, and they will also enjoy all the benefits derived from the CPEC project. So from the Chinese perspective, Pakistan is not only a very important neighbor, Pakistan is such an important country because no country has ever played that indispensable role back in 1971, helping China and the United States to reconnect with each other. I hope the Pakistani televisions and the newspapers, etc., will never stop about talking about this important intermediary role that Pakistan played to bring China and the United States together back in 1971. We probably should be ever grateful to the wisdom and the vision of the Pakistani leadership at that time, because back in 1971, the United States was very, very large as an economy. China was very small. Generally speaking, China was relatively backward in 1971. But I think your president at that time already had the vision that one day China and the United States will be the two largest economies and playing indispensable, very important global leadership role in the world. To that extent, in that sense, I think your leaders back in 1971 probably was the most visionary leader in the world. And he took a lot of risk. And Pakistan itself took a lot of risk in playing this intermediary and good officers role in bringing China and the United States together. So whenever I look at China-US relations, ups and downs today, challenges, sometimes all the impossibilities, for example, I always think about Pakistan and the important role you played. So from our perspective, Pakistan is an important neighbor, but we have 14 land neighboring countries altogether. But Pakistan has played very, very important role. And to that extent, I think my countrymen have always been grateful to Pakistan. And then in the world of today, we have no clashes of civilization. We have no clashes of culture. We can respect each other. And let me assure you, in China, the government here, the military here, and the people, the corporation, the society here are on the same page. That is, the Pakistanis are brothers and sisters, and we are fully prepared to work with you and share the best know-how and the technological breakthroughs that we have. And right now, and in the days and months and years ahead, there will be more such sharing between China and Pakistan. Why? Let me make one point, very important. The world is fast going into the artificial intelligence age. And I came up with a term I coined. It's called the AI divide. Now, if you look at the American way of developing AI, they probably want to make sure that the AI means American intelligence. They want to achieve dominance of AI, which eventually, if they succeed in doing that, will be very dangerous. China wants to promote the open sourced AI, the real open sourced AI, which will be for the benefit of mankind. Now, if countries in the world, and there are about 200 countries in the world, involving many different cultures, different civilizations scattered around in different parts of the world, if they do not scramble and move into action very fast, they will be lagging behind. There will be AI divide. And the AI divide eventually will exist between persons. For example, if you have a very sophisticated chips embedded in your brain versus me, who doesn't have such embedded chips, I may lag behind. I cannot compete with you. AI divide may exist between two companies, to governments, to militaries, to cultures, to countries, to civilizations, to different continents. What does that mean? That means all of us, individuals, companies, societies, cultures, civilizations, continents, etc. We need to scramble into action as quickly as possible to make sure that we do not lose out because of this AI divide. We should fully participate in the AI development. We need to make sure that our country, our culture, our civilization will not lag behind, and we will not be subjugated to the so-called AI dominance tried to be achieved by one single country. That means between China and Pakistan, in the coming years and coming decades, I personally hope we will work fully and without hesitation, without reservation, in making sure that China and Pakistan share fully with all the achievements that China has made and will make in terms of the AI development and the breakthrough. I do not want to see Pakistan lagging behind in this AI tsunami, which will sweep mankind and sweep the whole world in the coming years. Everything we do as a person, as a family, as a company, as a society, as a military, if I may emphasize that, as a government, as a culture, as a civilization, will be changed and reformed and transformed because of this AI revolution. So be prepared and try to get onto this important subject as quickly as possible and never be complacent when we see and confront this AI revolution. Now, if you look at this AI revolution in global terms, Pakistan today is not in the real forefront. There are only two countries in the real first league. That is China and the United States. The United States wants to do it in a closed sourced way, meaning they want to erect huge walls so that they will control everything and the rest of the world will be subject to their dominance. China wants to develop the AI in an open sourced way, meaning leveling off all the barriers so that AI will be developed by all and for the benefit of all, and no country should be excluded, and everyone, if they want to, can participate in this. So I think China-Pakistani cooperation in the coming years and coming decades, in addition to all the things that we have been cooperating so excellently, we should really refocus or focus again on this major scientific and technological breakthrough. And this will really make sure that neither China nor Pakistan will ever be on the losing side of the AI revolution. And for any young person in this audience, man or woman, for example, looking forward into the future, I hope you will really think about what I say. Make sure that Pakistan will not find itself on the losing side of the AI divide, making sure that Pakistan will always be on the winning side and we will participate fully, comprehensively, most constructively in this AI revolution, which is sweeping through the world as we speak. And by cooperating with China, which is a much larger economy, which is much more sophisticated as a scientific and technological giant in the world of today, we can make miracles. Now, talking about the Chinese economy, because your neighbor also includes India, allow me to mention one thing which has always impressed me a lot. Back in 1978, when China started the reform and economic opening up to the world, the size of the Chinese economy and the Indian economy were more or less on the par with each other. For 1 or 2 years, the size of the Indian economy was even slightly ahead of China's. But as of now, China is about 5 times as big as the Indian economy. You cannot tell the difference, the disparity being created ever since 1978 between China and India. Now, my interpretation is that China has been unswerving in pursuing reform and opening to the outside world. And China has managed to overcome all the problems, all the obstacles in China, as well as in its relations with the rest of the world. And China never wavered or dithered in its commitment to embrace the rest of the world and in pursuing reform and development as the key goal for China. And when I look at Pakistan, I always have one strong point to make. That is, Pakistan need to really focus on development, because by the end of the day, development will be always the hard truth. And you need to figure out what's the best way that works for Pakistan. Be creative as to how to develop your economy, how to make sure that people, more and more people, will be lifted out of poverty, and how you can scale new technological heights to make sure that you are not being left behind. As I mentioned, you will never be left to lag behind in this AI revolution. So I think we need to look at Pakistan on the one hand, China on the other hand, and equally, if not more importantly, how China and Pakistan can work together, always work together as brothers and sisters, always respecting each other, and never second guess as to each other's commitment to defend each other especially in defending the other side's sovereignty and territorial integrity. Now, again, allow me to shift a little bit to our relations from the very beginning. Throughout the decades, from our perspective, China has always valued Pakistan. And as of today, let me share with you my true observation. Purely from the Chinese perspective, there is no other country more important than Pakistan in terms of our close relationship. We do not have any reservation and any hesitation in working closely with our brothers and sisters in Pakistan. That's a very important point. And I hope our Pakistani friends, brothers and sisters, will share my view and will do the same. That is, China and Pakistan should never be complacent. We should always do the right thing. We should always respect each other. And we should always help each other in defending our sovereignty and territorial integrity. That will be the basis of my conviction if I ever have another chance to talk to that Anand, the host in India, that he will never see the independence of Balochistan. The sovereignty and territorial integrity of Pakistan should always be fully protected. And it depends very much on the efforts of Pakistani friends and brothers and sisters, of course, but you can always depend on the unconditional support from China. Now, allow me to also mention the challenges we all face as mankind, because I think world is at a crossroad right now. Whenever you hear about the United States talking about the tariff war and threatens all kinds of ultimatum against many countries, we should remind ourselves that this is the time to defend the free trade. I had a major debate with the former president of the United States to Denmark in May the 14th in Dubai at the Arab Strategy Forum. Former Ambassador Carla Sands declared that the United States no longer wants to do free trade. They want to do fair trade. I emphasized to the audience, very distinguished gathering of Arab leaders, that there will be no fair trade unless you do free trade. And free trade made Dubai as it is, made the UAE as it is, made countries like Singapore as it is. It also made the United States as it is today. So if the United States wants to destroy free trade, then China needs to rise up to the occasion to defend free trade. By defending free trade, China is not just doing this for its own economic gains or losses. By defending free trade, China is defending free trade for all the countries in the world, including Pakistan. And ironically, by defending free trade, China is also defending the legitimate interest of the American people, because they want to buy goods made in China. They want to engage with the rest of the world by doing free trade. And if the president of the United States keeps saying that by slapping all these tariffs on the rest of the world, now they slap tariffs on more than 200 countries, including Pakistan, he has not even the courage and the wisdom and the resourcefulness to tell the American people who will pay the tariffs. He told the American people that the tariffs will be paid by countries like China or Japan or Germany or EU as a whole, etc. No. As a rule of thumb, if you collect tariff, the tariff will be paid by your importers, which eventually will share the cost with the consumers. The tariff is, in theory and in practice, a kind of tax against the American people. So how can the United States be a greater nation if they keep collecting tariffs from the people in the United States? President Trump claimed that every day the US government is collecting about $2 billion of tariff. he forgot to tell the American people, you are paying the tariffs. I'm squeezing you. I'm making your life more difficult. President Trump even said publicly that, well, on average, each American family used to have about 20 toys made in China. Now you can only have two. And the two toys for your kids will be more expensive. He's not bringing happiness and joy to the families in the United States. By destroying free trade, he will not make America great again. Now, if President Trump and his government are really serious about relocating some of the manufacturing jobs or capacities back to the United States, I mentioned this publicly. By working with China, you can achieve that goal because China now is the most important manufacturing country in the world. The manufacturing output in China is larger than EU and United States and Japan combined together. So if the United States is serious about remanufacturing, then they should think carefully about how to cooperate with China rather than antagonizing China. But more importantly, in the world of today, we see this continuation of the war between Russia and Ukraine, which has lasted for more than 3 years. And we see all the atrocities, all the crimes against humanity committed against the Palestinian people in Gaza. We saw this Israel-initiated war of aggression against your neighboring country to your west, Iran. And we saw the bombing of the Iranian nuclear facilities by the B-2 bombers and all the Tomahawk missiles launched by the US submarines. Now, the world we are living in is not a peaceful world. And I'm so happy that China and Pakistan are standing shoulder to shoulder. And let me really share with you my observation. I'm so happy that Pakistan won that aerial battle with India. I'm so happy your pilots proved themselves to be the real heroes for Pakistan and for the whole world in defending peace by shooting down the Indian planes. And I'm so happy that you demonstrated that the China-Pakistani jointly produced planes, as well as the Chinese planes that Pakistan has acquired, are of such great quality that they can overcome all the odds possessed by the Indian side. Let me tell you, after the aerial battle, I actually visited Chengdu, where the J-10CE is being produced. And the people in Chengdu, whom I met, are so proud that they are the city which has made such an excellent plane used by Pakistani Air Force in overcoming the challenges from India. I actually lived in a hotel which has some kind of association with the manufacturer of that wonderful plane. In the lobby of that hotel, there was a kind of mini exhibition of the plane and all the history about this company. I was very much moved. I took lots of pictures when I stayed in that hotel. I was a speaker at an important meeting, but the fact that that hotel had an exhibition of its own about the manufacturing company producing the J-10CE plane, which flown by the Pakistani pilots, proved its mettle, proved its worthiness. It's such a touching moment in my own personal experience. Now, I mention this to tell you that China-Pakistani cooperation should never be complacent. We should always size up the new challenges and try to reposition our cooperation. I'm so encouraged to see that your government leaders, military leaders visited China, and a new chapter may be opened in our cooperation. And the requests from Pakistan, as far as I'm aware of, are all legitimate. And I really hope the Chinese government and the Chinese military will do their best to make sure that the legitimate request from the Pakistani side will be fully satisfied. Because our task is not just to win one aerial battle. Our task is to make sure that Pakistan will always win the battles, and Pakistan will always be in the invincible position whenever challenges may arise from whatever corner, challenging the sovereignty and the territorial integrity of Pakistan. Now, allow me to make another point. I think the situation developing to your west involving Iran, and the fact that Israel launched the war of aggression and the United States joined that war of aggression, and while there is a truce for the moment, there is high probability that that truce may not be long-lasting. So what will be the threat to Pakistan? I'm personally alarmed when I read about the remarks made by one extreme element in Israel, saying after finishing Iran, they want to bomb the nuclear facilities in Pakistan. Now, I hope they will never go to that extreme point. I hope they will still have senses in their mind. I hope they will not really go out of the bound to challenge peace and stability or challenge the sovereignty and territorial integrity of Pakistan, because there will be a limit. I think if any country wants to challenge the sovereignty and territorial integrity of Pakistan, my country will not hesitate to rise up to the occasion. And I hope the joint commitment, the joint resolve between China and Pakistan will put off any such warmongering, instinctive kind of urges for war. And I'm always opposed to whatever country which keeps wearing war on their lips. We always need to emphasize the importance of peace. Personally, I'm also very much encouraged to see your Marshal made a very important visit to Washington, meeting with the American leaders, including military leaders. I hope your leaders visiting Washington will always remind the Americans that we play the most important role in bringing China and the United States together back in 1971. We will continue to play important roles between China and the United States and in the world at large. Pakistan can always be an important country, playing important roles in the years and decades to come. Now, the other thing I want to mention before I wrap up, and maybe you may have some questions, is that development should always be treated as a top priority in Pakistan. I enjoyed every visit I made to Pakistan, and I understand there are arrangements being made for me to visit Islamabad again in the coming months, and I really look forward to that. In me, in Victor Gao, you have an unreserved advocate for China-Pakistan friendship and cooperation. I will never hesitate to make my mind known to everyone, anyone in the world, because I truly believe by cooperating unconditionally between China and Pakistan, we can make sure that both China and Pakistan will become prouder nations, and the Chinese people and the Pakistan people can be prouder brothers and sisters together. And we not only need to make sure that each of us knows about this, we also need to make sure that other countries in our neighborhood knows about that. I hope no country in the world will ever second guess China-Pakistani brotherhood and true friendship with each other. And they will never underestimate or second guess China's steely resolve in defending, in helping Pakistani people to defend your legitimate interest, especially in terms of defending your sovereignty and territorial integrity. So, to wrap up, before you may have some questions for me, the world is in great turmoil, and we need to really make up our mind to do the right thing. Some people say you need to make a choice. You need to pick either China versus the United States. I always say that's the wrong choice. The real choice for mankind as a whole is whether the United States is doing the right thing or the wrong thing, or whether China is doing the right thing or the wrong thing. If the United States is doing the wrong thing, why do you want to stand with the United States? If the United States is doing the right thing, why don't you want to work with the United States? Likewise, if China is doing the right thing, why don't you want to work with China? If China is doing the wrong thing, why do you want to work with China? So the real choice for any country, for the rest of the world, is to use your brain and to decide whether the United States or whether China is doing the right thing or the wrong thing. Let me tell you one thing out of my conviction. By destroying free trade, that's the wrong thing for the United States to do. By defending free trade, that's the right thing China is doing. And you need to use your own brain to make sure. And again, by promoting CPEC, by promoting China-Pakistani cooperation and brotherhood and sisterhood, that's the right thing for China and for Pakistan. And that's the right thing for maintaining peace and stability on the subcontinent. And that is the right thing to make sure that between China and Pakistan, or China and the Muslim world, or China and the Arab world, while we may have different faiths, for example, we do not have clashes of civilization. We fully and truly respect each other as brothers and sisters. On that note, allow me to thank you for your patience, and allow me to remind you that you will always have a true friend and a true brother in Victor Gao. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Victor Gao. And let me assure you, we have no doubt you are our great friend. And we respect you for your friendship, and we honor you for your friendship and the commitment and being open to showing this respect and love for Pakistan. That's why, so all the Pakistani love you and they want to hear you. You don't know how many times your short clips are being viral on Pakistani social media. If you would be on a Pakistan social media, you will be wondering, so I am in Pakistan or I am in China. So people love you like that. You are one and on. So your clip was viral. For example, recent days, I was watching your clip, and other Pakistani was sharing that they were on the Indus Water Treaty. You eloquently mentioned, so what can be done? You did not threaten anybody, but you spoke about the facts and the realities. And it's, as you said, it's up to the people to make a wise choice, who is doing right and who is doing wrong. So there was a message from your side. No, it's up to you. You decide either what is good for you or not. So that was wonderful. You are always love to see you. Before opening this session for question and answers, so Mr. Zahir Latif wants to give want to speak about something. Says Mr. Zahir Latif.
Thank you very much, Mr. Shakil Rame. Thank you very much, Excellency Professor Victor. You have explained your love and affection towards Pakistan and Pakistan's nation, in a very convincing manner. Not only today, but always. Whenever we have listened to you, you have been talking very, very nice. And more important thing is that thank you very much for acknowledging Pakistan's role back in 1971 vis-a-vis US and China's relation through Dr. Henry Kissinger. As I was reading your profile, you are also a businessman and as well as a capital market expert. So, me being the stock exchange professional, I warmly welcome you to Pakistan and I want you to be our guest. And you should see the progress. Recently, the Pakistan Stock Exchange has, achieved. And also, you would be very heartening to know that our stock exchange major portion has transformed into an Islamic financial ecosystem. And the Chinese consortium, the three stock exchanges who are at Pakistan Stock Exchange partners, they are also playing a very vital role. So I think that beside the geopolitical situation, you should also be playing a very important role for bringing Pakistan and China's business and cross-border, listing of the companies, and all those companies which are, working on CPEC should also get listed on the Pakistan. So that thing too, and I would want you to kindly play your role in this aspect as well. Thank you very much once again, Professor, and looking forward to welcoming you in Pakistan. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. It will be my great honor if I can work in any way with your stock exchange. I used to be the China policy advisor at the Hong Kong Securities and Futures Commission as a regulator, and I worked with Morgan Stanley and China International Capital Corporation before. So it will be a great honor if there is any chance. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Professor Victor. And when you will be coming in Pakistan in September, so we will try to organize your one session at the stock exchange. So with the Pakistani security, so you can meet Pakistani financial experts and the financial market people, and also the business community. And I think that would be a good chance to interact face to face and create some good opportunities in the future. Now, there's two questions which I have received right now from the students. One is from Mr. Shamim Ali. He is asking what we can do or take concrete step to enhance the artificial intelligence collaboration. One question. And second question, Ms. Mariam Hassan. She is asking, do you see Trump's foreign policy affecting Pak-China relationship in present time or a future?
Thank you very much. These are two very important questions. Now, for the younger generation in Pakistan, I have several ideas. One is to study Chinese language as much as you can. Chinese language is becoming a more and more important language because in this AI age, Chinese characters become more expressive, actually, more efficient in dealing with the AI revolution. Secondly, I think there will be more extensive exchanges between China and Pakistan in the coming years. If you have the Chinese language knowledge, you actually not only have Pakistan as a big market, but also you have China as a big market, which will be much more comprehensive, much more far-reaching as a market in the future. So if you can navigate freely between the China market and the Pakistani market, promoting peace and stability and cooperation between China and Pakistan, that probably will be a greater career planning. Now, on the other point, I think President Trump of the United States is really kind of engaged in revolution one after another. And the fact that he wants to turn Canada into the 51st state of the United States, the fact that he wants to take over Greenland in peace or in non-peaceful ways, the way he claims that EU is worse than China. And I told friends in Europe that China is not that bad and EU is not that worse. And he's declaring war on Harvard, he's declaring war on Los Angeles, etc. That means President Trump is having his hands fully occupied. And I really do not know how many more things he can do He only has 24 hours a day, as you and me do. And I hope he will eventually use greater wisdom and better part of his brain to promote peace and cooperation, rather than, for example, being pulled into one war after another and taking pleasure in inflicting more pains on everyone in the world. I'm happy that Pakistan nominated President Trump for Nobel Peace Prize. I actually made the same point in Islamabad after he won the election, I think in November 2024. And the point I made was, if President Trump can really bring peace to Ukraine and Russia, we should all have no reservation in nominating him for the Nobel Peace Prize. Now, I hope if he can really bring the atrocities in Gaza to a stop, if we can bring the war between Russia and Ukraine to a stop, if we can make sure that Iran will remain as a sovereign nation with independence and territorial integrity fully protected, we should all have no problem in nominating him to the Nobel Peace Prize. Allow me to share one point. I personally mentioned in a public interview in China that China should invite President Trump to Beijing and attend the military parade on September the 3rd, marking the 80th anniversary of the victory of the Chinese people's war of resistance against Japanese aggression. Whether the Chinese government will eventually make that decision to invite him, I'm still not exactly sure, but I do hope China will invite him, and I do hope President Trump will accept the invitation, and I do hope he will stand on top of the Tiananmen Gate and participate in the reviewing of the troops, because in defeating Japanese fascism, China and the United States were allies. We stood shoulder to shoulder to bring about the unconditional surrender of Japanese fascism. And while China and US relations have all the ups and downs recently, all the challenges, I do believe, as President Trump once said, if China and the United States can be on the same page, there will be no difficulty, no challenge in the world facing mankind which cannot be resolved. So while we need to be realistic and pragmatic, as we always need to be, we should always have enough optimism to look for the better relations between China and the United States. And traditionally, I think the United States has been very ambivalent and sometimes self-conflicted in looking at America's relations with Pakistan. Sometimes they did not fully acknowledge the contributions Pakistan played in dealing with Afghanistan, for example, and the fact that the United States troops enjoyed all the benefits in moving goods, services back and forth through Pakistan to Afghanistan in their 20-year-old war is mind-boggling to me. But I do hope the United States will really have a more realistic view about Pakistan. And if China-Pakistani relations will always remain a stabilizing force in our part of the world, and if the United States will truly believe that China is a megatrend that they need to accept, and the United States will need to really deal with China as it is, then I'm very confident about U.S. relations with China and Pakistan separately as well as collectively. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. There are very interesting questions. There are very interesting questions. One question is, you talk about the digital divide. So the one other person, the Noodle and Gul, asked about China use a different social media outlets. Pakistan use a different. So there is a big divide. We don't know what is happening on Chinese social media, and what is most of the Chinese people don't know what is happening on the Pakistani side on social media or the technology. Like we use as Facebook, Google, and other things. China use the WeChat and these other things. So how to correct this to mend this gap of the digital divide? One. Second question, So some people, the second question is, some people are saying, so CPEC is a debt trap and the Western countries are portraying this philosophy. So there's China is creating a debt trap for the countries under BRI and CPEC is one of them. So how you look at that?
First of all, on the social platform, and after finishing these questions, I need to say goodbye. First of all, on the social media, I know the American version of the social platforms are very popular in Pakistan. Keep using them. However, it doesn't cost you much to download, let's say, WeChat, which is very popular in China. If you listen very carefully to Elon Musk, he kept saying he wants to turn Twitter, now called X, into a new version of WeChat. He hasn't been able to accomplish that goal yet. However, for you to have your phone with both, let's say, X or the former Twitter, Facebook, for example, together with WeChat, it's a double win for you. And I think that probably will help you to communicate both with the Americans or the people in the West, as well as with your brothers and sisters here in China. I think to have more applications is not bad if you have enough resources and time to handle that. Now, on the other point you mentioned, if anyone says that China is creating a debt trap for Pakistan, you can tell him, if you do not like the way China is doing this, you come to Pakistan and build a highway, build a railway, build a power station, build a port, for example, because you need to look at the situation from Pakistan's need. Pakistan need all these connectivity projects. Pakistan need to beef up its manufacturing capacities. Pakistan need to upgrade its manufacturing capabilities, for example. If you do not like the Chinese way of doing that, you ask them, either Japanese or American or British or German or French, ask any one of them. If you don't like the way China is doing things here, you come, you build a highway, you build a Guadalajara port, for example, you build a pipeline. We need all these things. As a matter of fact, when you look at the foreign direct investments, the more the better. If China is doing that, for example, in tens of billions of dollars, and they say this is a debt trap, then you tell him, come to Pakistan, make equal amount of investment, and make sure it's not debt trap, and make debt trap, and make sure that we, the people in Pakistan, will benefit from your participation and from your investment. The real chess, the real test, the real taste of the pudding is in eating it. So you need to eat it. And if there is a pudding with China and the Americans or the Europeans blame China for something, ask them to provide a pudding rather than just the empty talk about the debt trap or not on the table. So I think the people and the brothers and sisters in Pakistan should really appreciate one point. That is, CPEC is the single largest, most expensive, most costly project within the BRI framework. And we need to make sure that this project is a complete success. And we need to make sure that the stability in Pakistan as a whole, especially in Balochistan, will be up to standard so that these projects can continue to fruition and generating economic wonders for the people in Pakistan.
Thank you, Professor. I have
Thank
written
you.
a paper.
Thank you, sir.
I written a paper on debt relief diplomacy, how the China is implementing debt relief diplomacy and breaking the shackle of debt trap of IMF and World Bank. That's why West is saying it's a debt trap. Brother, if you have only 1 minute, because one of the leading anchor person of Pakistan on TV and the top news channel, she wants to ask one question, or you have to give her interview later on. The choice is yours if you have to go.
Yes, please. Yes, please. Another question, sir.
So, okay. So her question is, you said, as we say, India is again investing huge in defense, so that do you think it will again strike on Pakistan in coming days? As an economy expert, what do you think it is one of the main cause of downfall of Pakistan economy?
First of all, I hope the Indian side will not have the audacity of striking at Pakistan again. They already learned their lesson after losing their aerial battle, because I truly believe the Pakistani side has the upper hand, because you have the benefit of a fully integrated system involving air, ground, sea, and the submarine. And with the Chinese help, you also have the satellite. I call this the 5 dimensions merged into one. The single plane is not operating in its own entire capacity. The plane itself is operating as an integral part of this multi-dimensional merged system. It's a whole network. Now, let me tell you, according to my limited information, the Indian side doesn't have that, because they imported all kinds of weapon systems from different countries. They find it almost impossible to merge it into a seamless network involving, as I mentioned again, satellite, that is space, and the sky, that is the air force, the ground, the land, that is the ground force, and the surface ships, that is the navy, and the submarine, which is the 5th dimension. You really need to integrate all these dimensions into a seamless network operating on an instantaneous and spontaneous methodology. And I'm truly very proud that the aerial battle you had with India in May demonstrated that your network works. And if China and Pakistan continue to cooperate with each other, your network will further improve. And I hope the Indian pilots will not have the guts to take off from their airports, because they know for sure that they run the risk of instant shutdown if they dare to take off and try to fire in the direction of Pakistan. This is China's military prowess. China is always very much understated. China does not brag about things, but I think our brothers and sisters in Pakistan very interestingly demonstrated the capabilities of the Chinese weapon system. And in the years and decades to come, let me assure you, my personal recommendation and firm belief is that China and Pakistan will continue to make strides in this technological cooperation between the two countries. And China-Pakistani friendship will demonstrate to the satisfaction of the world that China is not only an iron-clad friend and brother and sister of Pakistan, China is always and will also be a very important part of defending the legitimate interests of the Islamic world as well as the Arab world. So in that sense, China and Pakistan will have lots of things to work on together to make sure that we have peace and stability, not only for our two countries, but for our region, but also for our interested stakeholders. Thank you very much. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you, brother. I know you have a guest in your room, so you want to leave now. So, but thank you so much. But we look forward your visit to Pakistan in September and invite you some good lecture. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you all. Thank you, my brothers and sisters. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
So, dear all, so this was our lecture. आज ये हमारा एक lecture था. So I hope you have heard something to know about. So what Mr. Gao thinks, what China thinks about Pakistan, and what our relationship is, and how we can move forward. So with these words, if you have any other question, so you can talk to me. So I will try to answer. And otherwise, we will be coming to end for today's lecture. I will share the link for tomorrow lecture. And after day after tomorrow, that 2 more lecture we have in this week. ठीक है? If you have, okay, bye.